All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and get this call started. And
Okay.
Emmy, let me just say, we typically run these right at about an hour.
Okay.
And are you good with going longer if the questions are coming? What's your timing look like for today? How much did you block out?
I mean, I could talk forever. I don't want
Okay.
to have people be, sometimes when you're in church and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just ready. I don't want to be
Yes.
that person. So I'll probably talk for about 40 minutes or so, and it'll leave enough time for people to ask questions, because people always have questions and I want to make sure that I have enough time for everyone. So I had booked an hour and a half out of my schedule.
Good.
So
Okay.
I should be
Very
good.
good. All right, so let me go ahead and get us kicked off. So I'm Steve Cook with Lifeonaire. This is our monthly Global Connect call, and this is just an opportunity where we bring education to you. We bring the community together as a whole, and we're just reaching out to giving everybody an opportunity to not only get to meet other people within the Lifeonaire community, but it's also just an opportunity to be able to learn from what others are doing. How they're making things work today. As you know, most of us in this community are tied somewhat to the real estate investing community, but not everyone here is a real estate investor. I understand that is most of it. And our guest today, Emmie Gerritsen, she is with REI Print Mail, and she is going to be talking to us about direct mail and how to utilize it and what to do and what not to do in 2022. And I'm going to guess, Emmie, you have sort of a division that really focuses on real estate investors, but you're much broader than that as well. Is that true?
Our parent company is about 30 years old. It's family owned, and it was just general marketing. And about 15 years ago, we realized there was a need for direct mail for real estate investors. So things like that street view picture of homes and stuff like that, we started that. So we were kind of the pioneer. Exactly. Awesome. We were the pioneers, if you will. Then other people followed suit, which kept us on our toes because we had to kind of keep reinventing. So we've been around for a while.
So but the bottom line is, and the reason why I wanted to bring that up for all of you is that although Emmie's going to be speaking a lot as it pertains to real estate investing, the concepts and the principles are going to apply to just about any business that you are in. And if after this call you decide that, hey, I might want to work with her, it doesn't matter if you are in a different type of business. It would still be worth giving her a call and talking about your needs and seeing how you might be able to work together.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and really just turn this over to you, Emmie. You start out just telling us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what you hope to accomplish here today.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Steve, and nice to meet everybody. I see a lot of faces on there. So I'm actually working from home today. We were snowed in. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm a mom to 3 boys. So if you hear any squealing or something, I don't have pigs. They're 3 boys. And I told them, if I see your faces while I'm on here, we're going to have a very unpleasant conversation when we're done. So they're shoveling snow. I put them to work. So yeah, I'm based out of St. Louis, Missouri. And let me start my slideshow, actually. That's kind of the best way to begin. So it would be this one. And I like starting with this picture. So the way that I do this, guys, just so you know, I was a counseling major in college. And so when I speak about my business, I always speak about myself first, because people don't, this is at least me, I don't love doing business with people that I don't know. I like to be able to connect with them and understand who they are as a person. And so I put this picture up of myself and my 3 boys on purpose, because a lot of y'all are kind of pivoting midlife. A lot of investors that I meet were going down one path and they realized, you know what, I think I want to do something else. And they pivoted midlife. And I did that very thing at 37. I was a stay-at-home mom. I taught self-defense. I actually was a personal trainer, started my own business when I was 26 and actually used direct mail to get clients. Did that for about 14 years. And then at 37, I found myself divorced and suddenly having to work full-time and find a job to help support my boys, because I have them full-time. I don't get a break, which, you know, has its pros and cons. But anyway, so I want you guys to know that, because I understand what it's like to pivot midlife. And the way that we operate is very much as a coach and walking alongside you. And you'll find that my personal training kind of concepts will come into play when I'm helping you with your marketing strategies. Because if you wanted to lose weight, I'm going to say it's going to take 3 months. And I can't be there to swat the donut out of your hand, right? I can just do my job, which is inform you and help you in those moments. And as a direct marketing coach, it's my job via direct mail to get your phone ringing, and the rest is up to you. And really quick too, I did meet Steve in Birmingham, I guess 3 months ago or so, and you got up and you spoke, and I did not know what to expect out of the event. I was just going there to find some coaches and mentors that I could partner with and handle all of their students direct mail. And I thought these guys were going to get up and talk about how we make more money. Let's just make money. And then Steve gets up and shares his story. And I cry really easily. I am a heart person. If you tell me your story, I don't care what it is, I'm going to tear up, because that's connection. That's what we were made for, right? And so when Steve got up and teared up about his story, I was just like, am I the only one who's like, makeup is getting messed up? And I loved what he said of like, it was when I stopped chasing money and instead I started chasing Jesus that I got my family back, and I'm more successful now than I ever was before. And that is how I run my business. I am not here to place orders and like get a commission check. I'm here to help people's lives and to make their businesses grow. So I was very moved by Steve, and he came and chatted with me and my colleague. And I'm thinking to myself, Steve's mine. I'm not letting my colleague get him. I want to work with Steve. So I followed up very quickly, and here we are today on this phone call. Well, enough about me. Let me talk about my company. So I'll move this whole thing over. Who we are. So REI Print Mail. People call us a print house, a print company. Yes, plus more. We do all of our printing on site. We have the biggest printing facility in the Midwest. Last year we grew by 49%, and they have bumped all of us over. So that means I got my own office. We all moved over. We bought about 11 more printing machines. It's exciting. With the regulations surrounding cold texting and calling, people are turning back to direct mail because it's a tried and true, and it's been around for a while for a reason. And so, when people say you're just a printing company, I combat that and say, actually, we are more than that, and you'll find out why. We offer free direct marketing coaching. So who are we? We are a dedicated team of direct marketing coaches with one objective: to help investors get more deals. And you will find that the call to action after this, by the way, guys, is to just hop on my calendar. It's free to talk to me. Everybody gets my cell phone number. I'm always available. So that's all I want is time with you to figure out if it's a good fit and how I can help you with your business. And so the reason why it's important that we really highlight the fact that we offer direct marketing coaching is that we aren't order takers. I'm not just sitting here and people call me and say, hey, will you send out, a bunch of the white postcards for me? Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't think you have time to come up with a new hobby called direct mail. You just don't have time to figure out what's working and not working. So that's where we come in as the experts to tell you, based on our data, because we have about 5,000 clients around the US, and we know based on their results what mail pieces are working and what aren't working. And we have bi-weekly meetings when we share that information with each other, so that when we go to our clients who are calling and saying, it's a desert, my lead generation has just run dry, and I don't know what to do because I can't cold text anymore. I don't even have time to do cold calling. I need inbound leads so I can just close deals. And what I say to them is, okay, well, where are you located? And I walk through the process. How many deals are you getting a month? How many do you want a month? And then we back into it and say, okay, if you want 3 deals a month, based on what I see in your market and the response rate that you're going to get, that's how we know how much direct mail to send. And so it's very much a hands-on walking alongside you, you always have access to me. Our approach to mail, like I said before, we tell you what mail pieces work because we know. And a lot of mail companies don't know, and they kind of don't care because they just want to get that order. We spend a lot of extra time. I spend a lot of time actually outside of my job, making sure that I'm keeping track of what's working so that when people call me with their hard-earned money and they have families and they're saying, hey, I need to grow my business, I can sleep at night knowing that what I'm recommending to them is the best I got. And I know it's backed by data. And guess what? Those people, who will they keep calling when they get deals? They're going to keep calling me. And it's this awesome relationship that's built over time. And those are some boxes personally for me that need to be checked. You know, when I was looking for a job a few years ago, I was like, man, maybe I should just become an executive assistant or something just to get a job. But I knew that God created me for so much more. And that's why this job really works for me, because I get to connect with people. And if I connect, I sleep like a baby every single night. And so I get to enter in to people's lives and help them figure out how to grow their businesses via direct mail. So our philosophy is remove the guesswork for our investor clients by using our historical data to guide our clients to more leads and ultimately more deals. All I care about is that you're closing deals. That's it. Otherwise, why are we on a phone call? You know, that is my ultimate objective for you. And it's my job to get your phone ringing with enough calls to fall within that probability range of actually closing a deal from the direct mail. And the fact that we take the guesswork out makes you feel more secure, you know, putting your money out there and working with me. Our approach to mailing lists. So that's another piece to the puzzle, guys. The data. Sometimes people forget about that and they think it's all about knowing what mail piece works. But they're equally important. I've had people come to me and say, I'm bringing my own data. And I'm like, awesome, it's going to save you 16 cents a lead. And then I put together an awesome campaign that I feel really good about. And then it doesn't work. And they're like, oh, well, I think my data was old. Nothing's more infuriating than having a campaign not work. And so I'm pretty picky about data. And, you know, the whole point is we want to make sure that we are going after people who need to sell, not the ones that want to sell, because if they wanted to sell, they would call a realtor. There's 1,000 on every corner and your cousin's mom is a realtor. You know, it's just easy to find a realtor. And so if we find someone who is distressed enough, whether or not it's emotional or situational or financial, and they get that mail piece then that we know people are responding well to, it's a match made in heaven. So the mailing list is very much important. And I will typically, depending on what list source you use, I probably use it as well. And I love walking people through mailing lists and showing them how to choose the correct filters to make sure that these mail pieces that you're spending money on are getting into the right hands. So we help investors source and build lists based upon their specific campaign strategies and goals. Not all list sources are created equal. So here's the thing, a lot of people, if you're going after probate, you don't want to get that data online. It's really important to note because by the time it's gotten online, that's 2 months old. So you need a different list source for probate data. You know, I would say a year ago, vacant data, purely vacant was the lowest hanging fruit. Well, as of late, it's out of state absentee, it's absentee and vacant. So John lives on Main Street, owns a home on Pine, and it's vacant or tax delinquent. So it does change as far as like what lists are working and not working. And it's different in every market. I would not do an out of state absentee in Florida. You're running into the snowbirds who, you know, leave during the, or they come down during the summer and they don't want to sell their home because that's their vacation home. So things like that you have to be aware of. But we take time to walk through, even if you don't pull a list through us, what lists are going to work the best. Our approach, man, this thing is like in the way. Our approach to campaign strategies. So basically when you I do not have Steve's link, but I do have my calendar link, but I will make sure that he emails you guys his actual, it's like a launch site on our webpage that will be linked to him. But it will look something like this, where you can schedule a call. And that's really where it starts. Like I said, it's getting people on our calendar and just having a conversation and knowing that you're getting free, not just free advice, but if you want to launch a campaign, awesome. If not, I'm happy to give you other ways to get a deal outside of direct mail. Our ongoing guidance, coaching, and collaboration gets you results. And that means regular campaign meetings to ensure you stay on target. They're typically monthly or quarterly. Man, I'm going to be honest with you. I have some people who need their hand held and we talk every 2 weeks and I love it. I have other people, some of my biggest clients, I don't ever talk to them. I speak more like my project manager speaks with their assistant. Everybody's different, but whatever you need, and I'll very quickly know exactly what you need, I will set up a strategy for you. And like I said, you have access to me all the time, which sometimes I regret giving my cell phone number out. I'll get texts at like wee hours of the night, like, hey, what's the status on my direct mail? So number 2, Zoom meetings and screen sharing for seamless collaborations on list building, campaign planning, and more. So again, we are willing to take that time to walk through building lists and building a campaign for you guys. So let me just show you really quick what my link is. And then I have a couple of stories to share and some other, I have some mail pieces to show you. So, and Steve can, blast this out to you guys later, but it's at emmie.reiprintmail.com. If you go there, you'll see that picture of me and you can just grab some time. So let me stop sharing. I'm going to keep yapping about some direct mail. So one thing that I do hear a lot about direct mail is that, hold on a second. Hey boys, someone left the door open. Sorry. It's like 20 degrees out. One thing I hear about direct mail very often, people will get on the phone with me, they'll hop on my calendar and they'll say, Emmie, I've heard direct mail is so expensive. That's their biggest complaint and it keeps them from wanting to do it. And my response to that is, hey, Jake, the door's open, honey. My response to that is, well, if you do it incorrectly, yeah, it's really expensive because you're going to spend $5,000 a month or whatever it is, shotgun approach and praying that you're going to get enough calls back. And you don't have anybody to be that, I don't know, I guess that encouragement to you, letting you know, like, just trust the process because I know it works. And oftentimes it's difficult to get a hold of your rep. You don't know who you spoke to the time before. I've gotten a lot of people from other companies like Postcard Mania, Go Big Printing, saying, I'm not cared for. They just want my money. And then I don't hear from them again. In fact, they didn't care that I was leaving them. They were like, okay, bye. So it really, it comes down to kind of like 5 commandments of direct mail, if you will. And the first one is making sure that it gets delivered. Even if you can't afford direct mail with me, if you handwrite them and just get 10 out the door a week, the best mail piece is the one that actually lands in the mailbox and in the right hands. And like I said before, even if you're doing driving for dollars, looking for those physically distressed homes and, and I have a story about that here in a second, and making sure that you're at least touching people with the direct mail and making sure that it's getting into the right hands. That's better than nothing. It's better than sitting there and hoping that some of your cold calls are going to work. And all of a sudden it's 3 months later and you haven't closed any more deals. The second one is to make sure that your direct mail gets noticed. You never, ever, ever want that mail piece to get thrown in the trash. In fact, you want someone to get it and say, oh my gosh, I don't need this now, but I might. Or, hey, my friend Susan just got divorced. I'm going to hold on to that and give it to Susan later. I have a lot of clients who will get a call 9 months later after their campaign. And they're like, hey, I got your postcard. Well, I haven't sent direct mail in 3 months. Oh yeah, it was from like 9 months ago. And you don't do that with emails. You don't do that with texts or cold calls. Those come and go. It's not a physical thing to hold on to. So, and think to yourself, when you get direct mail, what grabs your attention? So like, for example, that one that Steve held up earlier, it's bright yellow and it has their house on it. That would get my attention, whether or not it's good or bad. Now, if you send this, you will get people calling saying, how dare you hide in my my bush and take a picture of my house, even though it says public information provided by Google Maps. So you have to be prepared for stuff like that. But if you're good at real estate investing and closing deals, the whole point is get somebody on the call, get someone calling you, and I can turn a bad conversation into a positive one. So if you know your strengths, don't be afraid to send the bold mail that might get negative phone calls, because sometimes those can turn into somebody who's honestly, maybe they're negative because they're getting divorced. You never know what's going on in somebody's life. So think to yourself about what, like what you notice when it comes to direct mail that you're getting. The third commandment is get opened. So there's that, anytime you send a letter, you know, there's that action that the person has to go to actually see what you're trying to tell them, what the message is. For example, this mail piece, it's our soft offer check. I honestly called it, do you have it in your hand? Yeah, he's I call it the fake check mailer. My boss says don't call it that, and I'm doing it anyway, because that's what it is. It's a fake check. And I don't know anybody who would get this. I don't care how much money you have, who wouldn't, is it fake? Is it not? It's 10 seconds out of your life. It gets opened. And what you do, I get really excited about this. What you do is it has an offer on there. And it's a percentage of the market value of the home. So really any list that you pull will have that sell and will give you the estimated market value of the home. And here's a super, super cool story. I have a guy in New York. He was new to direct mail. It's two partners. They were very nervous. I can get anybody excited about anything. I really can. And so I made sure that I was like, I don't want you just riding my excitement coattails. I want this to make sense for you, because if it doesn't, then we don't have to do this now. I don't want to force you and have you eating ramen noodles every night because you can't afford groceries, you know. He's like, no, I really need to get something out the door. He had a driving for dollars list up in New York, 1,500 quantity. Based on the data in New York, you're going to get about a 0.5% response rate on most mail pieces. And so we need about 20 calls back to close one deal. That's very much an average. So I told him, if you only send 1,500, you might get 8 or 9 calls. There's not much you can do with that. But this was my amazing closer who was great on the phone. And I said, I'm making an exception. I typically don't under mail because talk about a morale killer is not getting enough calls, right? I want to make sure we're falling within that probability range so that you can close a deal from it. And I said, but you're great on the phone and we're going to use this fake check mailer. Here we go. So we sent out 1,500 of them. He spent $1,400 with me. He called me 3 weeks later and said, Emmie, I'm so excited. I'm getting so many calls, but I'm going to call you next week with the data and tell you exactly how I did. And I said, awesome. I'm incredibly impatient. So I called him 4 days later. I said, dude, you're killing me. I need to know now. Like, what'd you get? And so he said, I got 35 calls. We should have gotten 8. I got 35 calls. And he offered 85% of market value, which is very high. That's extremely high, but it got the phone ringing. And like I said, he's great on the phone. 35 calls, 1 contract signed already for a $10,000 wholesale deal, 3 contracts out there waiting to come back in, and 10 to 12 other solid leads. He could easily make upwards of like 50 or 60 grand, and he gave me $1,400. So when people say direct mail is expensive, I'm like, tell me one person. You would be hard pressed to find one person who wouldn't say, Emmie, I'll give you $1,400 if I'll get 50 grand. So I love that story because it just goes to show, if you trust the process and you trust me as an expert, I will not lead you down the path of failure, because it, first of all, that's not who I am as a person, but I want to build that business relationship and I want it to work for you so we can keep working together. So that would be a get opened situation, right? This gets opened. Also, I love these. These work well to multifamily owners who own the actual multifamily. Who is that? Someone just wrote something. We're chatting now. Exactly, Matt, you're my new best friend. Exactly. You're not an investor until you're a marketer. That's just how it works. And until you can really understand that, you're not going to be successful. And I don't mean to be mean when I say that. It's just truth. Here's another one that I love. Looks like you're being invited to a wedding or a party. That whole FOMO, fear of missing out, right? Heaven forbid I should miss out on a party that everyone else is going to. This gets a super high opening rate. I use that a lot for probate and for multifamily. And also really upscale neighborhoods. Someone who lives in a $2 million home is not going to look at that much. It's not going to happen. You got to woo them. This is another awesome one because it's not a normal envelope. It's not like you're getting, where's my folder? It's not like you're getting this one that is, you get this one and you get this one. I don't know about you, but I'm going to open this one before I open this one. This is way more exciting. So the envelope's just a smidge more, but it doesn't matter. And that's something I want to touch on too, guys. I don't really care about cost per mail piece. That might rub some people the wrong way. But I'm always very straightforward and honest with you guys. The reason being, and I can say that with confidence, is that I can sell anybody a 46-cent postcard. I could do it all day long. I'd probably sell a lot of it and you would feel really good and you'd sleep like a baby for 2 weeks. But if that mail piece doesn't work well in your market and you don't get any calls or enough to close a deal, guess what? That small postcard that you're like, oh my gosh, I only spent 46 cents. It didn't pay for itself. So you're $2,000 out the door when you could have spent $3,500 and gotten a $20,000 wholesale deal. Okay. So that's really important to understand. I don't argue over pennies or cost of mail pieces. It's cost per deal to me. How much am I giving Emmie? And what am I making on the back end? That to me is what matters. And I think that probably makes most sense to people.
So Emmie, if I could interrupt real quick and just ask you a question.
Yeah.
So let's say somebody only had a $2,000 budget, or you used the example earlier of 1,500. So let's just use that number of 1,500.
Yeah.
Obviously, if somebody sends a postcard, they're going to get more. They're going to get that postcard out to more people.
Right.
But then if they did the blank check that you talked about earlier, they're going to get far fewer mailings.
Right.
Just to put things into perspective for everyone who is here, about how many at 1,500 would they get of the blank versus the postcard? And then what would you project just from your experiences for the results to come from that? What would you recommend? That they go with more of the mass or that they send fewer? What would you tell somebody who is listening?
That's a great question. I get that all the time. And here's my answer. If someone in Louisiana calls me, I would not tell them, you need to give me, 90 cents a mail piece and send this, because that's not necessary, because the smaller ones like this are working there. So that's part of how I figure out exactly what to send is, find out what their market is. If I get someone in New York and they say, I want to send these, so I can get more out, I will absolutely tell them that is not the strategy to go with, because I don't have data backing that this works. And I mean, if they're just like diehard wanting to do it, that's fine with me. But my recommendations are always to choose exactly what mail piece is working best in that market. And if they're like, I had a lady who, it was awesome. I respect people like this. She is in New York. And she said, how much will it take for me to get enough mail pieces out the door to close a deal? And I said, I'll take about $2,000. And she said, I'm going to save up and I'm going to call you back. By golly, she called me back 3 months later. And I gave her a pretty big discount on her printing. I'm going to be totally, I'm very transparent because I respected so much what she did. She went and she did it. And very few people do that. They say they're going to, and it's hard and it's uncomfortable. It makes them feel weird and they don't want to do it enough to actually do it. And she did. So, so yeah, to answer your question, me personally, I only care about what's working. So if we need to send less of what's working, or maybe you wait a month or two and save up a little bit, then we can hit it the way that we want to, like that lady did.
Mhm.
Yeah, great question. Okay, another one, the fourth commandment is you want to make sure it gets read. Honestly, things like this with the house and actually the satellite view of the home, that's cool. You don't see that a lot. And that's going to grab someone's attention. Plus the colors are kind of different. The pink, you see a lot of yellow these days, you know, something like this is very different. Highlights to draw your eye towards certain letters. This one, bold headlines. So this is actually one of my favorite mail pieces. It's called a self mailer. It's a trifold mailer. So I like to call it a hybrid between a letter and a postcard. So you can kind of tell me outside what the message is. So it's not like, oops, it's not like this guy where you're like, I have no idea what's happening here. Or this one where you're like, oh, it's in my face. It's softer. It's like right in between. And then you open it and it's huge. And you don't see these really anywhere else. And so what's cool about that is it grabs people's attention. It makes them, honestly, it makes them laugh. You'll get calls of people kind of giggling, like the mail piece is giant. And that's the whole point, is we need to stand out. If it's a small town in Louisiana, like I said, you can send whatever you want because now a lot is happening there when it comes to direct mail. But in California, it's insane. Everybody and the mother is down there, and the only thing that works is a fake check and this one, because no one else is sending it, but you're going to pay for it, but it gets the job done. So if you want to do it right, that's what you're going to do. And the fifth commandment is to get action. If the homeowner or the home is distressed enough, like I said, I think I pointed this out earlier, they get the mail piece and they're like, oh, thank God, because I need help. And I always tell my prospects / clients, make sure that you meet these people where they are. What do we like to talk about more than anything else? Ourselves. I don't care who you are. That is human nature, right? And so if you get someone on the phone who's calling you and saying, I might want you to buy my property, ask them questions. Get to know them a little bit, not like creepy, but just being kind, and show them that you're not just caring about the money, but you're caring about them as a person. And if they feel that you are wanting to help them and not just wanting to take their money, they will, that will resonate with them. I had a client lose a deal. He called me, he said, Emmie, I got X amount of calls. It was great. And I had a deal almost closed. And the lady called me and she said, I went with someone else. And he's like, oh, my heart. For how much? And it was $10,000 less than he offered her. And he's like, what happened? She goes, well, she was older. I really liked him. And he was like, Emmie, I was shocked. And I said, I'm telling you, and I told you this when we hopped on the phone, no one wants to do business with someone that they do not like. And if they like someone more than you, they're going to go with them, even if it costs them 10 grand. It's just human nature. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just answering the call and like closing the deal. You got to kind of get in touch with your emotional side. And if you do, I'm telling you, it's going to change your business. And I know Steve is very aware of that, of the head and the heart, and making sure that there's mindfulness going on and all that sorts of stuff. So I talked about the fake check mailer. Here's a non-success I'm going to share with you. And I'm sharing it because it wasn't my fault. Just joking. So I had a guy in Pennsylvania who said, I want to mail 10,000 mailers. I want 3 deals. I said, you'll get about 20 calls per, what was it? You should end up getting, a 0.5% response rate because you're in Pennsylvania. So you should get 50 calls. We talked at the end of the campaign and I said, how'd it go? He said, I didn't get any deals. And I was like, okay, well, how many calls did you get? 62. So instead of getting a 0.50 response rate, he got a 0.62, which means I did my job, right? And he was complaining that he got no deals. And I said, then we need to have a tough love conversation. And this is where my personal training side of me kicks in. There's something broken here. And if we don't fix it, then you're going to continue to run into this problem. So I helped coach him as to how to better close deals and to really make people feel heard and seen on the phone. And it changed his business. So, you know, I tell that story because it's really important to understand that, you know, I can't hold everybody's hands, but I sure as heck promise you I'll work really hard to get you enough calls. And then one last story. I had a lady who was a cop who called and I said, it's going to take you about $2,000 to get one deal. And she said, I can't afford that. I only make 40 grand a year, but my husband doesn't want me working as a police officer anymore. It's dangerous. And I said, okay, well, I want you to do driving for dollars. And she said, okay, I can do that. And I said, but what I want you to do is take a piece of paper, so 8.5 by 11. And I want you to write a note on that says, hi neighbor, my name is whatever. My husband and I are looking to buy a home in your neighborhood. Call me XYZ, that kind of stuff. Put it in a white envelope like this, take some blue painter's tape and put it on the front door. People are used to seeing door hangers, right? They're not used to seeing this. And I said, and leave it on, like, don't lick it. And I said, and then call me in about 90 days because you should get a deal if you're able to do that and put these notes on people's doors. She called me in 60 days and got a deal. And she got a deal, wholesale deal for $41,000. She makes only like $40,000 or $42,000 a year. And then we didn't have to have the budget conversation anymore. And now she does about 2,500 mailers a month. So I tell you that story to help people understand that if you're listening to me talk and you're like, holy moly, lady, that sounds really expensive. Like, I get it. You know, you got to spend money to make money. You know, we're going to be smart about it, XYZ. But I can't afford that. It's okay. You know, it's not like if you say no budget, I'm going to say, well, sorry, I have to go. I'm going to help you figure out other ways to do it, whether or not it's driving for dollars or maybe you hit your list with cold calling first, and then we follow up with direct mail. It's not about the direct mail. I mean, you saw me get excited because I've become kind of a dork about it because I see it changing people's lives. So the direct mail is just a vehicle that we use to get people from knowledge. I know what I'm doing. I want to be an investor. I'm ready to action. It doesn't just happen through hoping or just letting time go by. So if you want to rip off the Band-Aid and get a deal quickly, or get a steady lead flow coming in. You know, I can set up a one-touch campaign, or we can do like a 6-month campaign. It's to each his own. Everybody's different. So
let me ask you a question about that. So,
yeah.
you know, most everybody who's out there who tries to educate themselves with marketing, we're always told it has to be consistent and you should do it over a long period of time and be committed to it. And, you know, on a certain level, I agree with that. And then, but if you're doing something that's not working, consistently doing something that's not working, it isn't necessarily the right thing to go do either. And that's why I love how you monitor it. You have a pulse of what's going on. You know what is working, so you can make recommendations to people. And so when somebody does come to you and say, I want to do this, you can say, that's not working.
Yeah.
You can, I'm, as you know, you being my client, you know, I have to do what you ask me to do, but I'm telling you right now, this is how I think you should allocate your resources. But how do you feel about that? I mean, if somebody's going to do, what's going to be the difference between somebody doing a one-time campaign that they may spend $2,000 on versus being able to commit to $2,000 a month? What will they put themselves at a disadvantage for only doing the one-time campaign? And we all know that you're not going to get anything if you don't do anything.
Right.
But how much more effective does it get when they can continuously keep reaching and touching those same people?
Yeah, no, great question. If you only hit them once, you're definitely leaving some, what do they say? Like money on the table, I guess is the best way to put it. Because oftentimes people need to see things more than one time, or maybe they don't see it the first time and maybe it slips through the cracks. But so to answer your question, if someone calls me and they're brand new, not just to direct mail, because I have people who are millionaires and never did direct mail, and they call me and they get it. Like, I got to spend money to make money. Here's my budget. It's 10 grand. Let's set up a 4-touch campaign. They get it. But someone who's brand new and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. I'm scared about the whole thing. And especially spending money with you. I don't know you. Direct mail seems expensive, blah, blah, blah. I tell them, let's just get your first touch out the door, and then we'll schedule a phone call after that. And that's why when I say for people who just do one touch, it's not just one touch and done. It's one touch and let's reconvene. Like those fake check mailer guys in New York, we just did one because they were like so skittish. They were scared to death. And so we have a call set up next week to launch their next one, but they're also flippers. So if you think about that, someone who's flipping, they don't necessarily need to be consistent. What if they're getting 50 leads and they already have 2 projects going on? They can't handle many more leads. So it's really situational. But by setting up a 4-touch campaign, what's cool about it is if it's someone new to me and they're wanting to do a 3 or 4-touch campaign, I'll tell them, okay, we're gonna do 3 different mail pieces, all that I know to work well in that market. I had a guy in Nebraska, we did this. The first touch was this one. The second touch was almost twice as much, and it was this one, and he was balking. He's like, Emmie, you're crazy. And I was like, just trust me. And the third one was this one. 3 different mail pieces that work really well in Nebraska. Different phone number tracking numbers on there. So when John calls in, you don't have to say, hey, John, are you looking at mail piece number 2 or 3? You'll know for your KPIs which mail piece he's calling about. And at the end of that 3-touch campaign, we hop on the phone and you tell me how many deals you got. Tell me what your pipeline looks like. And then you say mail piece number 2 for the guy in Nebraska. It was this one. It was a more expensive one. He got 2 deals from 2,500 of them. So he's like, I don't care how much it costs because I got a ton of deals from that. And now we just have snowballed with it. So I guess a lot of my answers to your questions will be, it depends.
Yep. Well, I'm famous for that.
Yeah.
People ask me questions and my answer is, well, it depends.
Yeah.
It's not a one size fits all. And people get frustrated with me for that. So
yeah, I'm not afraid to say it because if I gave a blanket answer, that would me not being an expert. That's what that would be. So if I could just get people on my calendar, just have a conversation. I just saw that Chris asked a question, multiple touch, same piece or different. Yeah, Chris, I was saying, usually I'll start with a few different mail pieces, and there's always one that does best. And that then becomes our control piece. And we use that over and over and over again. It builds a brand recognition, and absolutely we can put the logo on there. That's kind of to each his own. But what's cool about that is you can test different mail pieces and like different zip codes. And so if it does really well, that's a good zip code. If it does poorly, that's a bad zip code, because we know the mail piece works. So that's incredible data that a lot of people don't have. Are you adding company branding to the mail? When you send different mail pieces, are you worried about having repetition recognition? No, I don't know anybody who would have a worry about that, because that's a good thing. It shows that you're professional and you're a good marketer, and people don't want to work with someone who's just like disorganized and not consistent, because if they're consistent in their mailing and, essentially in their business, they're going to be consistent with you as a potential seller. But yeah, you can put company branding on there. I want
to know what kind of experience you have with self-storage he's sending to self-storage owners.
It would be a letter. I've done one. A couple of my colleagues have done a couple of those as well. It's very much like anytime you're reaching out to commercial properties. So it would be, got a lot going on here. It'd be probably 3 different touches. I don't have this one envelope. It's our brown craft envelope. It says priority on it. With supply chain, we're actually out of it, which a lot of printing companies are out of paper. But really letters like these guys, oops, hold on.
I can attest to that. We are having trouble getting Lifeonaire books printed right now because the printers don't have paper.
Well, we do. Just maybe that could be another conversation. It's we have, because we've been around for so long and we are a very honest company. We have pretty amazing relationships with our vendors. So my response rate is 7% with 2.3 interested in selling.
That's very good.
That's fantastic. So we also do land mailers, which are simple. You're going to get a 7 to 12% response rate. This is what they typically look like with our land mailers. Vacant land, that's really successful. Direct offer in general is just killing it everywhere. We've cracked the code in Arizona. My client actually became a millionaire this past year because of direct mail with me. And so it's fun to see.
All right, so I have a question that
Yes.
I'm going to ask of you. We
Mhm.
have a lot of different personalities who are on this call right now.
Mhm.
And there are some people who may have tried some kind of marketing in the past, or you touched upon it earlier, that,
Mhm.
hey, you're going to get those negative calls and things like that. And when you learn how to overcome that,
Mhm.
just to, because you'll also provide coaching and ongoing coaching, but maybe you can give people a tip of what a negative call may be that they get in and how to overcome that, just so that they know,
Mhm.
okay, I can do that. And
Mhm.
let me have a talk with Emmie about doing some mailings, because she just gave me a tip on how to overcome that negative caller.
Yeah. So here's one. Someone gets this, like I touched on earlier, and they call and they say, what the heck? I'm gonna call the police because you were hiding behind a bush and taking a picture of my home. And to respond to that and say, oh my gosh, what a terrible feeling to feel like someone's doing that. I'm not. If you see at the bottom, public information provided by Google Maps, just validating. This is just I guess a human, or like an interaction with humans tip in general. When you validate what somebody's saying, even if you don't quite understand where it's coming from, the walls that immediately come down, I'm telling you, it's like a magic trick. Because again, we just want to feel heard. And so if someone says, you're freaking me out, oh my gosh, I'd be freaked out by that too if I thought someone was doing that. Thankfully, I'm not. But I am interested in having a conversation about your home. What a weird way to start a phone conversation, but I'm so glad you called. And kind of like giggle. You don't have to giggle, but
So that's one way to turn that around. And I think that's awesome. I think people here need to hear that. That will help give them the confidence that, yes, I can do this too. And it's easy.
It is.
In fact, you should almost approach each call as it comes in, that is what it's going to be. Don't be caught off guard.
Right.
And so if it is a negative call, you just immediately be ready for that, and to be able to turn it into a positive. And if it starts out positive, great. You don't have any work to do.
Exactly. Yep. Pleasant surprise.
How about probate? Oftentimes people would call and say, how dare you? My family member just died and you're now trying to buy this house. What would you say to that person?
Yeah. So we have a probate partner that we use for our data. They physically go into your county courthouse and they pull it for you and they scrub it and skip trace it. So you get all this data of the executor, attorney, up to like 12 relatives. And so so before we had this partner, I had people call and say, I have probate data, but I don't have letters. So I personally, I love to write. I hand wrote some letters, like a sequence of letters, and none of them said my condolences. None of them said anything about probate, because we all know what happened. They don't know me from Adam. If I offer my condolences, that's going to get an FU and in the trash. It just is. I'm telling you. So just approaching it as I'm an expert. And I mean, with probate, sometimes John lives in California and mom died in Missouri, and John has a full-time job. So to handle all of that is extremely overwhelming. So if you send a mail piece, which I typically will recommend that people don't just send mail to probate, but that you follow up with a phone call and say, hey, this is John. I sent you a letter. I know you probably get a ton of them. I know that you probably do. But I just want to see if you'd be willing to take a couple minutes and chat with me about the property, because I really would love to help you guys out. I know it can be very overwhelming. So just being very honest, like you're getting a lot of them and you owe me nothing essentially, but could we have a quick conversation? So yeah, again, it's just kind of being honest about the situation that you are reaching out to them, and they may not like it, but it's just having a quick call. Did you have another question about pushbacks? Because I saw that Frank Woods has a question.
Go ahead with Frank.
Frank, do your clients take the calls themselves, or do they, or are they using a VA or call center? Do you have a recommendation? Great question. Yes, I have a lady, her name is Lisa OK, and she provides all of my clients VAs. I've heard horror stories about VAs, time spent training them, money spent on them for it to just not work. And Lisa is fantastic. When I have calls with people, I'll say, hey, you need a VA, you got to talk to Lisa. And I'll shoot you an email and I'll copy her on it. I kid you not, every time I do it, she responds all in about 10 minutes and says, thank you so much, Emmie. Hey, John, I can't wait to help you out. And I've had her help probably 10 or 20 of my clients find VAs. So yeah, it's, as far as taking the calls, if you don't have a VA, using something like CallRail, like I mentioned before, or an REI Black Book number, that's a CRM, where the phone number on the mail piece, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, is through another service like CallRail. When that comes into your cell phone, it will come in through your CallRail number, so you'll know. So like if I'm on a walk with my boys and someone calls, I don't recognize the number, I'm probably not going to answer. It's family time. But if it's coming from my mail piece through that phone number, you better believe I'm going to answer it. So yeah, it's up to you guys, Frank, to answer. But yeah, CallRail is great for, or Pat Live is a great answering service, or my lady who can help you find a VA.
All right. So this is the Lifeonaire community, and a lot of people are not interested in becoming very busy, and some are interested in getting busy and building out these more extensive operations. But there's gonna be a lot of people who their primary interest is in keeping this simple, and they might not want to do a lot of mailings. They don't necessarily want to get the VAs and the call centers. And what would, obviously, they don't want to send the same amount as, they don't want to do 5,000 mailings a month because they're going to be on their phone a lot.
I wouldn't want to, get it.
But if they do less and they decide, I mean, I only want to send out a couple hundred pieces a month. I'm just looking to pick up maybe a couple extra deals a year. Is that possible for people? Can they do that and actually still get deals? Or would you say you're not doing enough? You need to do more than that, even to get just a couple. How would you respond to somebody who is thinking in those terms?
Yeah. So what I would say, first of all, about their bandwidth to actually be able to handle the calls is that, let's say we do 2,000 a month. We can split that up and drop 500 postcards a week, right? And so that means about, at the high end, maybe 5 calls a week. I think that's pretty doable. And that should get you 5 calls a week equals about 20 calls a month. And that's about what you need to close a deal. So I had a guy, Randy, he's been my client for like 2 years, and we talk more about life than actually mail. And he only sent 500 postcards, but it was a really, really, really button up list. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of pain points. This data was like really, really good data. So to answer your question, Steve, I have had people come to me and send lower quantities, but if we're going to do that, I need that data to be really good and make sure that not only is it absentee, but there's, they own 5 other properties and they've owned it for 20 plus years and they're tax delinquent. You see what I mean?
So This was very early in the call when you brought this up, and I absolutely love this about you, and it goes along with when you said it depends. I mean, that sounds, it's like I'm listening to myself, and you talked about that you back into direct mail. I've always been this guy who has helped people back into the right type of real estate investing in general for them, that it's just not a one size fits all. So when you get onto a phone call with somebody, and just to remind everybody, you can go and schedule a call with Emmie and actually talk to her about what your goals are and what it is that you want to accomplish. Talk about your budget and things like that. And she will help you to determine whether or not this is the right thing for you or how to go about doing it. But what would that maybe look like for somebody with backing into the deal? How does that conversation start? What are you trying to determine? And so that they can be prepared for that call.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm nosy. I'm a question asker. I want to know all the things. As much as you want to tell me, I want to know. And so I will ask you a ton of questions. And one of them being, how many deals do you want a month? And people, of course, are like, oh my gosh, I want 20. I'm like, okay, I got it. How many deals can you handle a month? Because you're a one-man show, you can't do 20 deals a month, sorry. What's your bandwidth? What can you handle? How many calls do you think you could realistically handle? Because I'm about to get your phone ringing. And if you let leads fall through the cracks, we'll both be extremely disappointed. So yeah, it's about asking them, what do you want? Okay, well, you want one deal where, well, you're in Louisiana, we only need to send 2,000 mail pieces. And that's going to cost you $1,100 maybe. So your cost per deal is about $1,100 because everyone's question is, how much is it? You know, how much does it cost to talk to you? I'm like, well, that's free. You're only paying for, there's printing and there's postage. Sometimes postage is about half the cost of the whole thing, which is unfortunate. But because of Steve, I can give you all 10% off printing. It comes out of my commission, but I'm happy to do it. I'm doing just fine. But I love helping people get off the ground when it comes to getting their marketing going.
Somebody's asking for the recording. Just for those of you who did come in late or you want to go back and re-listen to this again, Paula will be the one who turns this around and she makes it available to the community. I can't tell you when that's going to happen or how it's going to happen because I'm not involved with that, but it does get turned around and it will be made available to you and put out there for the community. I'm just going to guess that sometime within the next week, this will be made available to the community in general. Anyone else have any questions for Emmie? If not, I can ask some because I do have more written down here. I took a whole lot of notes while we were.
I noticed.
Lynn, you just turned your camera on. Did you have a question?
I do not, but I can tell you that I'm working with Emmie and she's been wonderful. So
Hi,
I highly
Lynn.
recommend. Hi.
We just started working together actually this last week.
Yeah.
She called in and I came to the rescue and hopefully it'll be smooth sailing from here, right?
That's awesome.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Good to see you, Lynn.
You too.
Anyone else have any questions?
Oh,
Contact info.
yeah. I'm gonna go back to this, guys.
While you are getting that, I'll give you something to think about. You know, one of the things was, you know, doing what, you know, focusing on what's working in 2022. Things don't drastically change, but over the course of the last couple of years, what changes have you seen and what adjustments have you made on your end to help people? You know, I guess a better question is, what is something that you were doing maybe a couple of years ago that worked that you say, no, we don't do that anymore?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I wouldn't say it's a no, we don't do it anymore, but we do less of it. I do less of these. I'm being totally honest with you. It's when we came out with it years and years ago, it was like, you know, it's like when bell bottoms came out, it was like the best thing ever, right? And then everyone started doing it, and then everyone stopped doing it. And so certain markets we can do it again, but you just have to be careful because it's just overused. Direct offer, I'm gonna be totally honest with you. We have probably 6 new direct offer mail pieces outside of just the fake check mailer. Because it's what's working in those really saturated markets. So that's one thing that we've seen is that because of all the competition, you have to be a little more aggressive. You just have to.
Are there markets that you think are ripe for the picking right now?
Yes, that's funny. I get that. So people, I've had some pretty heavy hitters call me and say, I want to expand my markets. Tell me where to go. And I'm like, that's like the worst thing I could ever do is handpick where they should do their business. Because if it doesn't work, you know, it's my head on the table or whatever. So what I say to them is choose a really boring state and a big city in that boring state, and you kind of can't go wrong. So because it's not one person in particular that I'm talking to right now, it's lots of people. I would say, honestly, Arkansas, Iowa, Louisiana, kind of those, some of the Dakotas. There's some spots in the Dakotas that are working really well. I've got people killing it in Arizona, which is insane because Arizona is tough.
I remember going back 3 years ago, students of mine, they were tracking their cost per deal.
Yeah.
And they were at like $9,600 per deal.
Yeah.
In Arizona.
Yeah.
It was so competitive.
It's nuts. It's kind of the new California. In fact, it's like almost surpassing it. So,
are you finding that, and I'm going to go back to when I was a much more high volume investor. And many people would tell me, some of the first things that they would say to me is, oh, you mustn't have much competition where you live. And I said, I probably have more competition than you do. And many people would ask me, they'd say, well, help me to find the areas where there's not much competition. And I'd say, well, if there's not much competition, there's probably not much going on.
Exactly.
And my recommendation was to find out where all the competition was and jump right in there with them. Just make sure you did a good enough job to get your fair share. And that's sort of the attitude that I take toward that. Don't run from the competition, because if there's money to be made, that's why there's competition.
I totally agree with that.
And they are there. And so your goal is to just be a little bit better than them. Return to call faster, tweak your mail pieces to, you know, get them opened more or something. And that's why working with someone like Emmie is a tremendous advantage, because when somebody is working from a vacuum and they're just writing letters or having it taken care of from themselves, and they have no data to go along with that, they don't know what's working for other people. They don't know what their prospects are receiving from other people. You know, they might be working with an older list, but you know, when you're working with somebody who is on top of this, that this is what they do day in and day out, and they're working with all people. I know as a coach who works with people, I know when the market is shifting. I know when things are changing in the market just because of all of the feedback I get from the people I coach. And so you get the benefit of all of that when Emmie is helping people with marketing. You get the benefit of all of that. And you know, my recommendation is really, there may be low-hanging fruit in areas where there's less competition, and there's no question about it. There's going to be some low-hanging fruit in every area, but don't let the fact that there's a lot of competition keep you from going out there and doing things now. Your goal is to just be a little bit better in your competition in only one area. You don't have to be better than them at everything. You just have to be better than them sometimes at only one thing. And that's where the difference is made. And you know, so I want to just encourage everyone, if this is something that is appealing to you, don't let little things like that hold you back. I love the fact that Jeff shared his results from his mailings to self-storage. You know, Jeff's out there and he's doing things right now. He's making it happen. And I've had some very, very good results from direct mail and throughout the years. And I'm just gonna share with you, Emmy, I was the person who started doing, and people have been teaching it now, they've been talking about it. I would literally take a napkin or something and I would write, sorry for being short, but I'm interested in buying your house. If you're interested in selling, give me a call. And I would drop it in that envelope and mail it to them.
Yeah.
And I would have my kids writing those for me on scrap paper and putting them in envelopes. And
That's what kids are for.
and it was extremely effective.
Yeah.
The calls that we got from that were much higher than any other campaign that I ever did, and it was very short. And so, but to have someone where the creativity is built in, you've got all kinds of people working together and collaborating to come up with what's working best.
Yeah.
And there's a tremendous advantage to that instead of trying to figure it out on your own.
And I have to be honest, it's so exciting when people call you. It can be exhausting to chase after those deals, to try to keep someone on the phone when you're cold calling them, for them to slam the phone down. And the sweat equity, it does get old. So I'm not saying don't do sweat equity, don't do cold calling. I'm saying find like maybe 2 forms of marketing that you can be consistent with and just do a really good job. Because people who, maybe John, who's 30 and is really busy and is a single guy, he hates checking his mail. He never checks his mail. He doesn't see the mail, but maybe he'll respond to a cold call, right? And vice versa. So it's always good to make sure that you're reaching out to people in different ways.
All right, one last question, and we'll go ahead and get this wrapped up because we're already over, but I am curious. The direct mail, if I'm sitting here and I'm just thinking about this, more often than not, I would guess that this is going to be more appealing to an older generation and maybe less appealing to millennials.
Right.
What are your thoughts about that? Is it just as effective in both areas, or?
Here's the thing. If the person needs to sell their home, it doesn't matter how old they are. They're looking for a way out. And side note, I don't send a lot of mail that says pre-foreclosure, bankruptcy. It's like a kid getting a bad grade on a test. They don't need to be reminded of that.
Yeah.
Right. It's embarrassing to go bankrupt. It can be embarrassing. So just see them as a normal person who might need to sell their home, and they're going to respect that. But yeah, I mean, I had a guy say, I would never, ever respond to a fake check mailer. I was like, oh, so have you ever been in pre-foreclosure? Have you ever gone bankrupt? Have you ever had major tax delinquency? And he was like, well, no. And I said, try that sometime and then get this check in the mail and then call me back. And he's like, touche. So it's, if the data is good enough, the age doesn't really matter.
All right, so I'm just going to answer this last question for you. Are your clients giving you the list, or are you giving it to them? Emmie did talk about that sometimes our clients do come to her with the list, but there's a problem with that. Sometimes the data is old and it doesn't work. I think Emmie's feelings about that are, if you insist on her using your list, she would use it, but she'd prefer for you to just go get the best data, the best list available. If you're going to be spending the money, you might as well be working with the best information, the best list, and not take the chance of spending a bunch of money mailing out letters to an old and dated list that's going to be ineffective.
And side note, I've changed a lot over the years. I used to be just a relational person and not like a data driven. That my mind doesn't work that way. But I've become such a stickler about data, and I love pulling lists. I spend about 40% of my day pulling lists and about 60% of my day doing my calls and walking people through campaigns. So yeah, if you want me to pull the list, I can do that.
And then, and Frank is just asking one more time about scheduling. Would you prefer for us to schedule on your website or call you direct for an initial introduction call?
If you go back to the Emmie.reiprintmail.com, when you click on that link, it will take you to my scheduling page. That is 100% the easiest way. Sometimes people will call in and I can't get, if you're not on my calendar, we're probably not talking. unless you're one of my kids.
Awesome. All right, Emmie, thank
I'm
you
gonna type-
so much.
Yeah, I'm gonna type it in there just one time, just so people. Yeah, and thank you so much for having me, really.
Well, very informative call. I appreciate you sharing with everyone. I'd love to have you back at some point to keep on sharing more, because I think what you have is very valuable, and it's extremely important for the industry that most of our community is a part of. So
Yeah.
Thank
Well, I appreciate you guys. Someone already hopped on. Man, you guys are quick. We got Michael P on there already. Okay. Anyway, enough about that. Guys, thank you for tuning in. I loved it. I like seeing your faces. Lynn, good to meet you face to face after chatting. Steve, I love what you're doing. And I was thrilled that I got invited to this. So I hope you do have me back.
awesome.
All right,
Have a blessed
guys.
day. Take
Have
care.
a good one.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Emmie.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Lynn, bye.